The image of the perfectly fearless leader, it's not just unrealistic, it's a dangerous myth that holds women back. This episode of the Power Talks for Remarkable Female tackles that myth head on, revealing a liberating truth. Fear isn't a sign of weakness to conceal, but a universal human experience. So discover with us how embracing this reality right now, especially amidst uncertainty, becomes the bedrock of true leadership strength, resilience, and authenticity. Guiding us through this essential shift with me today is Dr. Tonya Jackman Hampton, an award winning executive, a best selling author of The Myth of the Fearless Leader, and founder and CEO of the Sequel Consulting Group. She brings over 30 years of transformative leadership experience from Fortune 500 companies and major healthcare systems like UC San Diego Health. As a certified executive coach and speaker, Tonya empowers leaders to unlock their potential through emotional intelligence and behavioral psychology. Welcome, Tonya. It is so good to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm doing very good. Thank you, Helena. It's great to be here with you. I appreciate the
Likewise,
introduction.
I'm really looking forward to our conversation. We had some technical hiccups. We are dealing with tech all the time, and yet sometimes it's like doing things that we absolutely not don't understand, or we don't. It has been working like week after week, and then today it doesn't. But we are here, and we are so happy to invite you to join us and to participate and to contribute to this conversation. So if you are here live, welcome. Connect with us. If you have no connection with us in LinkedIn yet, then do so you can follow us and you can see what we're doing and what we are bringing to the world. And feel free to leave your comments and your questions and your feedback in the chat. Even if you are listening or watching this replay, then don't hesitate to leave your comments in the chat. We will monitor and we will make sure that we follow up. So join us, participate, don't be afraid, no fear. We will be talking about fearlessness. And Tonya, for you, it's a very important topic because you wrote a book about it. So 30 years in corporate life, I guess you have encountered and observed a lot of leaders that were like demonstrating fearlessness, right? How did that go? And what's the impact of pretending that you are fearless?
Yeah. Well, I think the impact, I'll start with kind of from the bottom up, if you will, from your questions, and say that the impact is that people will not provide ideas and concepts or perspective in a way that is full of authenticity, or uh, the impact can be that there is a psychological safety that is people that struggle with that, and their inability to contribute is based on the fact that they don't feel comfortable, they don't feel safe. And so from a individual contributor perspective, that can be as impactful and even more so impactful for a leader in the organization. And the reason being is most of our leaders don't have someone in their organization that they can truly confide in, or that they can inform that they have concerns, worries, and doubts on their mind without being judged. And the higher you go up in your organization, the less your audience is for having those types of conversations. And so I often say that it's really important for leaders to have a coach, a friend, a therapist, a board of directors, which essentially is people in your organization that you can trust, or people outside, or a mix of both. And those are important mechanisms to allow you to exceed or to guide you on your path towards success. Otherwise, it can be a lonely ride.
Yeah. This is so interesting. Last week I had a power talk with Julie McManus, and we were talking about masterminds and masterminds specifically for female corporates in order to like break through this isolation at the top. Because it is true, right? I mean, male or female, although I want to know your experiences there also. The higher you get on the corporate ladder, the more difficult it is, first of all, to admit that you don't know something, or admit that you are anxious or that you are worried, because I mean everybody's looking at you. You are the one that is making choices and taking the decisions. You are the one leading. And on the other hand, the higher you get, the less people understand the challenges and the complexity of what you are navigating. And so it's very difficult to have that feedback and those conversations that really can support and sponsor you in your decision making process. But even then, this being fearless, this myth of you have to be fearless and you have to be strong and you have to stand there and you have to know it all. Where does it come from?
Mm. We believe it's a form of leadership, and it's the narrative that we have, most of us have grown up with, that it's important to be fearless and that you shouldn't have fear. We hear a lot about fear, and the messages that we are surrounded by tend to influence our perspective, right? We are products of our own environment. And so I think that at least what I'll bring up as a story of where it can stem from is, for example, and I share this example in my book, that when a baby is crying, we are taught to support that child so that we quiet them down. Our fear is that they are in pain, and that's the right kind of worry, meaning we want to provide support to a child or a baby. But we are taught in that same stream of thinking to not cry. And then it's a lack of an example of leadership if we are crying, or if we express anxiety, worry, doubt, or fear. And we so those messages at a very young age come up in general conversations or interactions. And so over time, our behaviors or our brain patterns, either one, are taught to act in a different way. And there are numbers of quotes that I could recall, but one in particular that comes to mind, that Nelson Mandela talks about, that courage is not without fear, it's the triumph over it. And so if
Mhm.
we can, set our mind on the idea that courageous leadership is more about understanding what your emotions are, fear being one of them, we can actually be more wise about how we proceed in the strategies that we design, the organizations that we create, and the interactions that we have with one another. The last thing I'll
Mhm.
say is that fear is truly an intersection between how close I feel to someone. So the idea that I will be more inclusive with someone is that if I can understand them more. But sometimes we're fearful of who that person is or that interaction. When in fact, if we can better understand why we have that fear, that worry, or doubt about someone, we're more likely to engage in conversation because we have now an understanding of that emotion and why we're being impacted.
Yeah. In your experience and in the research that you did for your book, have you seen a difference between men and women leaders? Because when
Mm.
you go back to this childhood imprints, especially for boys, it's like boys don't cry, boys are are fearless, boys have to get over this, and for little girls, there's a little bit more flexibility there. And there's a lot of research that indeed, like you say, that states that what we are told when we are children, when we are very, very open, when we don't have the capacity yet to filter and to see and understand what is true and what is sometimes true and what does not serve us, we just take that in and we keep that in our patterns and in our subconscious as something that shows up for some of us that don't do the work forever, I would say. So, do you see a difference between men and women in terms of this fearlessness and how they show up as leaders?
Yes, I mean, women are cultivated as they evolve from young women onward to be more open and be vulnerable and show emotion. We give a comfortable space for women to do that. While at the same token, in the business world, I learned through the interviews and just through interactions that women can also be wounded as a result of showing their vulnerability. it can be interpreted as some form of weakness, or it can be interpreted as timidness versus, being able to be assertive. And so we do have to be mindful of those biases and those stereotypes that can exist if a woman or a man or any gender identity is showing any form of vulnerability or emotion. And in fact, it's a human behavior to be able to show emotion. And where we want people to be is on a higher spectrum of emotional intelligence so that they can embrace that type of emotion that's coming at them and not see it as a conflict, and more or less actually see it as a individual that needs support, and how can I partner and establish a relationship that is more healthy and where I'm accountable to that person, meaning I'm willing to partner with them or play my role as their working colleague.
Mm, yeah. In a one-to-one setting, I guess this is something that you can kind of navigate and manage, if I can call it like that. But when you look at C-suites, where you have a lot of um, assertive and ego-driven, and I would say sometimes aggressive behavior, how do you deal with that? What are ways to shift that culture or that energy in the C-suite, in meetings where um, these kind of conversations and interactions have a completely different dynamic than in a one-to-one situation? What would be your advice there for people that are listening in now and say, yeah, we recognize this, but how can we navigate that in our
Yeah.
C-suite, in our meeting rooms?
Well, the first thing is that organizations have to be willing to admit that the behavior that is more demonstrative of bulliness or uh, just pure, aggression or microaggressions that might be used in the organization is not acceptable. And so we have to be willing to name that a interaction with someone else is uncomfortable. And that uncomfortness can be mitigated or addressed by a one-time conversation, or it might need to be more programmatic, meaning that the C-suite, or even starting with the executive, the CEO, and his or her team, or however they identify, ensuring that that team has a coach to support them through their strategic planning, through their culture design, through their organizational design. And why that's important is that they've got a partner from the outside who has a different perspective at the table and is aware of the activities, the behaviors that are being displayed in those environments. And they can be open and candid with that group and help them identify the steps forward for correcting it. Uh, it also allows the executive team to latch on to very quickly some of the values that are important for cultivating a inclusive work environment. And so that's the first thing I would suggest is, naming and ensuring that and then being willing to partner with someone to take you through the journey of creating an environment where people feel like they are welcome, included, and valued.
Yeah, I have to say I've been observing meetings several times as the consultant or the leadership team coach. And it's amazing how many blind spots there are and how much unawareness there is about what you mentioned: aggression, microaggressions, interrupting, belittling, things like that. People are absolutely not aware of that. And then when you name it, when you bring that to the table, it's like, um, yeah, it's amazing. And of course, there we are going back to the emotional intelligence um, level that people have in order to understand the impact of their behavior and the impact of their conversations and the words they choose and their complete nonverbal behavior, how important that is. What I like, Tonya, is that you basically work at two levels, because too many times I hear and I read, um, especially, I mean, I'm working mainly with women, like, it's your problem, it's your issue, you have to do something about it, while it is a corporate culture thing. as well. So if you don't work at both levels, at both sides, I guess it's something that never can be um, set up successfully. If you
Hmm.
only think that it's the individual that needs to change behavior or change communication style or become more emotional. Intelligent or become more resilient. It is about, like you say, the corporate culture and what is actually not seen, but very often felt in the interaction that people have in meetings, right? Yeah.
Right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
So if people are listening in and they recognize this and they say, yes, this is exactly what is going on also in our organization. And to be honest, it will be the case in a lot of organizations. What's like a first step they can take in order to shift that and to work with that at the corporate level?
Mm-hmm. Self-awareness. Our number one job is to establish a set of um, uh, components and understanding, if you will, path of who we are as individuals, and being willing to accept and receive feedback, whether it's positive or opportunity focused, and also being able to build a development path forward that is inclusive of focusing on your opportunities and emphasizing your strengths. And so I like to, in my coaching experiences and or organizational processes, introduce to the organization, to your point, at different levels, assessments. So an individual assessment. I am a Hogan certified coach that utilizes that type of assessment and or others to help the coachee, is what I like to call them, really understand who they are, and then to begin a path or development plan for moving forward and correcting some of the opportunities to the best of their ability, because we know that it's more important to really work on those strengths. And so be mindful of who you are. And you also get a set of values that come up from the Hogan assessment, for example. The
Mm,
other thing that I would say as a part of that first step, which I haven't actually named as a umbrella step, an umbrella step is engaging with your fear and recognizing what are the different experiences that you've had in your past that you can learn from. And so being willing to self-reflect is important too, as a part of that engage phase. And then as you shift into the second phase, which is the explore, is understanding how you can put the steps together from the experiences that you've had in the past, as well as what are other experiences that other people have had that have been in your life that are leaders, and how can you learn from them and gather different steps and ways at which they have led to design ultimately a execution plan to move forward. And while I explained that path of engage, explore, and execute at an individual level, I use that same path with teams and organizations to design their own team plan or a strategic plan for their organization to achieve. And it can include metrics, right? So, how can you define organizational metrics so that you can come back and measure success?
mm. Yeah, beautiful. We have Kelly here joining, um, sharing
Hi,
that
Kelly.
we are talking about or bringing an incredible perspective. And she adds, imposter syndrome is a feeling that sometimes happens with me when I am fearful, not knowing all of the answers when leading. Being vulnerable is so critical and creates better leadership and trust. Absolutely. Imposter syndrome and fearlessness, Tonya.
Yeah. I love your
I
question,
think
Kelly.
we can write another book about that one, right?
Yeah, we can. And imposter syndrome is a pretty popular remark that people have made, and I would offer that believe there is such thing as imposter syndrome, and at the same token, it's very similar to the messages around being fearless, in that if we keep hearing that it's the imposter syndrome, we believe it is. And so another step I offer to people is to let go of the messages that we've heard. There's not a thing of being fearless. It's understanding that you do have fear. Fear is a very critical emotion to help us determine how to keep ourselves safe. Have it. If we think about
Yeah.
the Maslow hierarchy of needs, the very first step in the Maslow hierarchy of needs is safety or physiological safety. And so we tend to assess whether or not an environment is going to keep us safe or not. So the fear that you are feeling is a indication that there's something that you need to pay attention to. And so
Mhm.
being more fear intelligent is what I like to say, or informed, is the goal. And how you do that is stepping out to consider what are some steps that I can take rather than the typical path that we have heard, which is fight, or freeze. Try to say that fast a million times and you can't. But nonetheless, the fight, flight, or freeze is typically the mode that we have been told to go towards. And that's good when we, again, if we're anticipating that, I like to say, we're going to bleed or something bad is going to happen to us or someone else, or there's actually could be death involved, we should caution, right? But we do take risks every single day. We literally go to sleep every night. We're not sure if we're going to wake up. So I like to share with people that being willing to do the things that frighten you, try them so that you can at
Mhm.
least build up the capacity to improve doing it. So, for
Yeah.
instance, I used to not like to do presentations. However, I learned that my not like was more about I was excited and did not like to wait. The anticipation was the part that I didn't so much like, but the actual doing it, I enjoy. And so it's understanding that if you at least step out and do that activity that you might be frightened about, the more you do it, the more likely you will build the muscle to improve. You will
Mm.
also more likely identify that you are excited about the activity as opposed to afraid of it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Apparently, research shows that excitement and anxiety
that's right.
have a completely similar or even same physiological and chemical process in our bodies. It's all about the meaning that we give to it. And I
Yes,
believe
yes,
that
yes.
working with a coach or working with a trusted partner in order to reframe these things can really be helpful. But you mentioned something very interesting because indeed, like fear and or complete neurological system of the fight. Now I'm going to have the same, the fight, flight, or paralyze or
Right.
freeze is something that has been developed in our bodies to keep us safe, to keep us alive. All right.
That's
So,
right.
and as you say, we are taking a lot of risks every day. I mean, even going to work, taking the car
Yes.
or taking a
Yes.
train or taking a plane, it's a risk, right?
Right.
Now, if we're talking about that whole system to keep us safe, and then we put that in a corporate situation, right? What is there that can kill us?
No, no,
I
right?
mean,
Exactly.
there's this very interesting phenomenon that we are
Hmm.
afraid of so many things that actually are extremely, I would say, ego driven. They're not life threatening. They're not, I mean, they're just scripts we write about
Yeah,
what could happen or what did not happen or what should have happened or how people will look at us or how we will get out of this, things like that. But if
that's
we
right.
look at fear and the the concept of fear and why it is here, like you say, to protect us, basically to protect our lives. How is it possible that we are afraid of so many things that in 90% of the times don't even happen because it's like
Yeah,
scripts we write for the future and that are actually absolutely not life threatening? I
right.
mean, corporate life can be a crap hole, but it's not life threatening, isn't it?
No, yeah. Well, and we, tend to be afraid of, I say, four things that stem from the research that I did.
Mhm.
I boiled it down to four fears, but really there are 16 underneath it. And the summary is that we are afraid of failure. So that's the F. We are afraid of the effect or the impact that we will have on a environment, a person. Uh, we are also afraid of the result that we might have, which is baked into that effect. And then second or third, we are afraid of the uncertainty. And then finally, we don't trust the environment or the fact that we won't be judged. And that's a big one. That's actually one of the main reasons why we tend to avoid things in our work environment, because we are worried about being judged.
Yeah.
And that acronym, it spells feud, and we get into a fight with our fear, is what I like to say. And the other reason why we tend to avoid things in our work environment is because we're worried about our survival. Meaning, we're not sure if I make a decision or if I say something, if it's going to be pleasing to others, and therefore I might lose my job. And so then you continue to go up the Maslow hierarchy of needs, and the next thing is pay. And
Mm,
so whether or not I feel safe in my financial status can be a trigger for me if I feel like I should or should not say something. And so I like to suggest to people that they make sure they have a backup plan, right? Like, what's the backup plan? And it's not ever too late to have that backup plan, and every little thing helps, right? And so I encourage people to identify what is their backup plan. I also encourage people, frankly, to have multiple streams of income. So you're not relying upon one source, and that you've got many different ways that you're considering how you can financially maintain yourself. And not all of them will look at be at the same level, right? They can't possibly be, because you're only one person, but you can identify perhaps a smaller stream that can maintain you, and or identify ways at which you can save dollars, whether it literally is $1, right? If you just put $1 aside every single day, that's $365 that you didn't have. And so, that will buy you a few things, and it may not last you, but I'm just trying to bring a practical understanding to how important it is to think about what is your other stream or streams of income.
yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing that I mean these four reasons that bring fear. And I know we should not be analytical and reasonable about this, because I mean if we are activating or fear, we're also activating our flight or freeze.
That's right.
Um, and none of them bring solutions. None of them make the risk or the problem or the issue that we at least create in our heads go away, because either we respond very aggressively and we like overact or overdo, or we just run away from it, or we ignore the problem or the challenge or whatever it is, or we don't do anything and we disconnect. So I also believe that it is very important to understand those mechanisms and accept those mechanisms as the way that we are wired
Mhm.
for centuries, from the beginning of humanity, in order to save our lives. And we can calm that limbic system and those reactions by activating our prefrontal cortex and asking specific questions, reflecting, pausing, doing things in order to calm those reactions and go into response based on
Mhm.
something that is a lot more um, uh, in interaction with a reality, instead of with those three. And there's more, but these are the three that we know the best, these three reactions that we have like in the moment. So do you do something about that also? I mean, I work with my clients a lot on like breath work and meditation, and how self-care and having specific practices is really building that basic um, resilience, but also that potential to go into your calm, to stay into your power and your strength, instead of going into your fight, flight, or freeze. What are your rituals or routines for that?
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah,
curious.
mine are I do have my own physical ritual, which is my physical running for myself, and that tends to keep me resilient, and it also puts me in a place where I can calm my energy down. I recognize, however, not everybody likes to run or can run, and so really good practices that have been a part of the work includes giving people a lid lifter or a way to reframe something. And for example, my reframe is my two favorite walk on songs, is what I like to call them. One is You Gotta Be, which is by Desiree. And if you actually continue the verse, it's You Gotta Be Bold. It's a very good song. It came out in the 1990s. I love that song. And so anytime I need to power up, or literally if I'm going to walk on stage or go into a meeting, I will play that music in my head, or I will actually play it to get
Yeah.
myself energized. The second
Mhm.
song that I use is Every Little Thing Is Gonna Be All Right by Bob Marley. And
I love that.
that too has turned into a mantra for myself, so much so that I have it tattooed on my wrist. And there's a
Oh
story
wow.
about my mom that's behind that, which is very short, that I'll share here. Is that she was passing away, and for like 3 days she hadn't spoken. My family reminded me that I tend to say everything is going to be all right often. And I actually learned that from my mother. And so then when I heard Bob Marley's song for the first time, I just got connected to it. And I started to sing it occasionally when something was happening that was a little scary in the family. I can't sing, but whatever. I love that message. And as she was towards her last few days, I went to her bedside and just accepted the fact that at some point my mom wouldn't physically be here, and started to sing to her. And she, even though hadn't been speaking for a few days, repeated the third verse with me, which was great. And so I will
Wow.
always remember that, and hence the reason for the tattoo on the wrist. There are other reasons that I've done things as a result of her, but there are also things that I'm very proud of. And it's a good example of I will never be 100% okay that she's not here. And I'm okay with that, by the way. Um, but the song, when I think about her, or if I'm wanting to get excited, because it can be both a reminder of calming myself as well as a reminder of how to create excitement, um,
Mhm.
that song will come into my mind and I will play it.
That's a beautiful story, and thank you so much for sharing that intimate moment.
You're
It is
welcome.
beautiful. We have Jenny saying here, love both those songs.
Hmm.
And exactly, I
Hello,
mean,
Jenny.
music and even singing is can really shift your emotions.
That's right.
Absolutely, because you use your, especially also if you really sing out loud, you use your voice, but also your breath in a different way, and you of course activate the memory that that song. The emotions that that song brings to you, you activate those emotions as well. So those are
Yeah, if I
very,
could,
very good.
I will just add, Helena, that if we name our fear out loud, or if we name our mantra out loud, those same activities help us to change our mindset. So it's small practices like that, a song, a mantra, a quote, a message, that can help to shift your brain.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a Spotify playlist. I will put it in the show notes. I have a Spotify playlist for with mantras for protection, and sometimes I'm really singing them out loud. And some of them have a very good rhythm, and you can even dance. And body movement also is a
Yes,
very good shifter
that's right.
and catalyzer. I mean, you run, I swim. I love to swim. And sometimes I feel like I swim myself in trance. I could swim like for an hour and a half, go and back and go and back. And there's a lot of things going through my head and like loosening up. And I just I'm mindful in the water, and the swimming pool is with salt, not with chlorine, and
Sure.
it's like velvet. You just go like through velvet. It's amazing.
That's right.
So certain movements, running, swimming, dancing, are all body
Mm.
posture shifts
That's right.
that also
Even
help you to calm that that
that's right.
limbic fight, flight, or freeze
Yes, and I
reaction.
was gonna share
Absolutely.
too, in addition to that, the different activities that you've described, we may have heard of Amy Cuddy, right? So she talks about
Yes.
those simple power movements that allow us to divert the energy a different direction and get us ready, or power
Yeah.
postures in a meeting can help you move your cortisol throughout your body a different way so that your body is able to relax, or you are able to relax and actually deliver the message and or content that you're trying to deliver. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. I think it is so important. You mentioned it, and I had the same. I mean, we are here now live streaming. We will be here forever on the World Wide Web. If you would have told me I would be doing that, if you would have told me that 10 years ago, I would say, no way. I'm not on camera. I'm
Not
very
doing
bad
that.
on
Yeah.
camera. I don't like to see myself on camera. But if you have a message, if you want to bring something to the world, it could be to a boardroom, it could be in the C-suite, it could be for your team or your organization, or it could be like in a speaking engagement in general. If you have a vision that you want to share, if you have a message that you want to share, you better start doing that and start small and start recording yourself. I mean, there's so many things that we are afraid of for no reason. And
Yeah.
and a very important one, you already mentioned it, Tanya, is the fear of judgment. How
Mhm.
will other people look at us? How will other people, will they like it? Will they like what they say? Will they like how we look? Will they like the dress we wear, or whatever? I mean, we are so worried about external things. And if we can turn that internally and be so much aware of why we want something, and put that intention so firmly in ourselves, we won't have the energy to spend on all the external judgment and things, because we have this firm belief that we are doing something because we are doing something. Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Oh, it makes a lot of sense, and it resonates with me. And I mentioned it too in my book that I came up with a another acronym when I was going into my very first national role and leading an organization through organizational change. And I was worried about whether or not I would say or do things that people would like. And I finally said to myself, I need to have a newly formed attitude, which is not everyone is going to like you, right? Like at the end of the day, it's inevitable that something's going to happen where someone's not going to resonate, or they're not going to like what you said or like what you did, or gosh, I hope not, but they may not like me as a result. And if I stay in that space of not everyone's going to like me, then that's going to, right, prohibit me from wanting to take another step forward or take an action. And so I have to believe that that statement actually is true, but I have to change how I react to that. Meaning,
Mm,
I can't just fight, fright, or freeze. I have to actually think about how am I going to engage, explore, and execute to move forward so that
yeah,
I can make a positive impact is the goal. I may not hit it
yeah,
100% on point every time, and that's okay. I'm not about perfect. I'm about just being excellent, meaning how can I try and learn and improve the next time so that I can increase my capacity to be more effective. And so,
mhm,
yes, not everyone's going to like you. We all like to be liked, but you can't stay stuck believing that that's a bad thing if people don't like you. It actually, it's okay. You can learn from that. And it's
yeah,
impossible. There's too many people in this world. I would love it if everybody liked me. In fact, I hope for a world where that exists one day, right? Because that, in part,
mm,
the reason why people don't like each other is in part why we are having so many struggles in this world. But at
yeah,
the same token, I can't let that stop me from trying to make a positive impact on some
yeah.
one person, because the more I can make an impact on one person, and if that spreads, then we have more of a success rate of actually creating a better world.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, of course, one that helped me a lot is don't take things personally,
Yeah.
because it's not because you make a decision that impacts people in a way that they at first at least feel uncomfortable or disappointed or whatever, or afraid, it doesn't mean that they don't like you. They might not like the decision. They
That's
might
right.
not like the strategy. But if you explain that respectfully, it does not have to have an impact on your relationship. It is about how you bring it, and we are sometimes very afraid about how people will judge us based on decisions and choices that we make, while actually they're just going through their own process, and it doesn't
Hmm.
really have anything to do with you. It has to do with they overcome the resistance to the change or to the discomfort or to the unknown that is activated by certain decisions or choices. And if you stay, like you already said, in the relationship, and if you stay close with the people and you support them in that process, then you don't have to be afraid that people won't like you, because actually it doesn't have anything to do with you. There's a
Right.
lot of things that we take on ourselves that are actually the process of the other, right? And they react in their processing, and we think this is something that they put on us, but it's not. For me, that has been extremely helpful. Like, okay, this is your process, and I respect that there is resistance. I respect that there is discomfort, and I'm going to help you with that. And but this is not me, because this is something that has to happen in a corporate or in whatever context that you need to make decisions where not everybody feels happy at first. That's just the reality. Yeah.
Yes,
and
yes.
and the more responsibility that we take and the more impact we want to have, the more these things happen, right? So
That's
it's
right.
better to get a vision on that, and to understand all the dynamics that are behind it, and get away from taking things personally. Yeah, absolutely. Tanya, why should people read your book?
I'm sorry, I did not hear you. You said something about a book
Why should
first.
people read your book? What's
Oh,
like the most important message or thing that they can get out of it? People that are here because they want to grow in that leadership, they want to grow in that accepting fear, overcome it, and make decisions that are based on um, strategy and reality rather than on being afraid.
yes. Yeah. And I would say that one message is to identify how you can master being with fear, right? So part of the masterization is recognizing that you have fear, that it's present, and it's okay that it's present. And then creating an understanding of how do you learn from your past, create a strategy, set of strategies for you and your organization to move forward. Organizations can do the same thing. They can look at through employee feedback, through assessments to understand what's going on in their culture, accept it, and then create a plan to move forward. So often,
Mhm.
we're not willing to accept that emotion or those not so great things. And the more that we can accept and acknowledge them, the more likely we are able to learn from them and build a plan to be successful in the future. So I baked a few thoughts into, you asked me for one, but I gave you a few.
Yeah,
And
wonderful. Thank you so much.
right, so there's so much there, and I get really passionate about it. I'd love the opportunity to, continue to have the conversation with you and or others that are interested. I have a website that they can go to that is inclusive of my full name. That's in the title here that we've got up on the internet or the live showing. So Dr. Tanya Jackman Hampton is the website. And you can reach me there, as well as if you pick up a copy of the book, the address is there too. And I look forward to connecting and learning more about you and how I can support any one of you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'll make sure that all the connection information and contact information is in the show notes and in the comments below. So you have no excuse not to connect and not to dig deeper. I think that Tonya, I mean, you have lived and you breathe what you are talking about. You have this experience in corporate life. You have this experience in consulting. I think it is so important to share that message, to create this awareness, and also to build the support for leaders that want to grow into that. You're a coach, I'm a coach. You have had coaches and leadership development programs. I had them. We don't have to do this alone. There's so many
Mm-mm.
possibilities where you can look for support and for sponsorship. Because you're not the only one in this situation, and there are so many possibilities and strategies and ways to break through that, basically. And especially what you're mentioning and what is also in your book, also openings to create that awareness in your organization, because once again, you don't have to do this alone as a person, but also you are in an organization, so you're in a system, you're in a bigger thing that creates that culture. And there, I guess HR might be the right place to go if you want to bring this to the table. Tanya, what do you think?
Yes, I do think that that's a good capacity to be in, as well as a operator. So there are operations and administrative roles that you can go into. They often call at the highest level the chief operating officer or the chief administrative officer. Those three roles, the CHRO, the chief human resource officer, is the first, the HR role that you named, tend to be roles that orientate themselves around creating a culture. A chief strategy officer is one that tends to be an orientation around strategic planning. And so that can also be
Mhm.
a way in which you, as a person who has an interest in wanting to help an organization form its strategic priorities and or culture, the former three other roles that I mentioned, can be a role that you can hold to move forward. You don't have to be in that senior role, but there are verticals that exist within each of those different officer positions that lend themselves as a way for you to be able to have touch points to strategy, culture, and org design. They just happen to be roles that I'm passionate about too. And to your point, Helena, you've been a wonderful partner and collaborator. You do beautiful work, and it's our capacities. I think we have the capability to do that in different ways together, and make an impact so that, yeah, we get to a place where there's more organizations, more individuals doing really good work in a way that's
Yeah.
effective for other humans that they're around.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only do we coach people in this, and you wrote a book about this, but we also help to create a language about that. It's
Yes.
so important to have a language to be able to understand what is happening, but also to find a language to bring that into a room, into a meeting room, into the interaction, so people understand what is going on. And finding that narrative is sometimes easier said than done. And I think having these conversations, making them public, keeping them on LinkedIn and on YouTube contributes to that. So if you liked what you heard, if you learned something, leave us a message, leave us a note, like the episode, or subscribe to what we bring to you, so you are in the loop for future editions and activities of both Tanya and me. And looking forward to seeing you again. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us. Hope you got some of the golden nuggets, but you can also always watch the replay if you want to go deeper. And Tanya, thank you so much for sharing your stories, your beautiful anecdotes also, and your experience and your knowledge and your wisdom here on the Power Talks. Thank you so much. I'm extremely grateful.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Helena. I appreciate you and everyone that attended.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Bye bye.